My piece is from the book American Tall Tales by Mary Pope Osborne, and I chose this selection because I really like Paul Bunyan. There once was an amazing baby that was once born in the state of Maine. When he was only 2 weeks old, he weighed more than 100 pounds, and for breakfast every morning, he ate 5 dozen eggs, 10 sacks of potatoes, and a half barrel of mush made from a whole sack of cornmeal. But the baby's strangest feature was his big curly black beard. It was so big and bushy that every morning his poor mother had to comb it with a pine tree. Except for that beard, the big baby wasn't much trouble to anybody until he was about 9 months old. That was when he first started to crawl, and since he weighed over 500 pounds, he caused an earthquake that shook the whole town. When the neighbors complained, the baby's parents tried putting him in a giant floating cradle off the coast of Maine. But soon a delegation of citizens came to the baby's parents and said, "We're sorry, folks, but you'll have to take your son somewhere else. Every time he rolls over in his cradle, huge waves drown all the villages along the coast." So his parents hauled a giant toddler to a cave in the Maine woods, far away from civilization, and said goodbye. "We'll think of you often, honey," his mother said, weeping, "but you can't come back home. You're just too big." "Here, son," his father said, "I'm giving you my axe, my knife, my fishing pole, and some flint rocks. Goodbye and good luck." After 30 days of not eating or drinking, he heard a flap in the river behind him. When the baby looked around, he saw fish jumping in his river of tears. He reached for his father's fishing pole, and soon he was catching trout. He used his father's knife to clean and scale what he had caught, and his father's axe to cut down trees for a fire. He started the fire with his flint rocks and cooked the catch over the flames. Then he ate a big fish dinner and smiled for the first time in a month. That's the story of how Paul Bunyan came to take care of himself in the Maine woods. And even though he lived by himself for the next 20 years, he got along quite well. He hunted and fished. He cut down trees and made fires. But nothing, however, prepared Paul Bunyan for the wild weather that would occur on the morning of his 21st birthday. It was a cold December day, and when Paul woke up, he saw gusts of snow blowing past the mouth of his cave. He saw the snow was blue. "Why, that's beautiful," Paul said, and he pulled on his red and black Mackinaw coat, his cornelian scarf, and his snow boots. The snow fell until the woods were covered with a thick blanket of blue, but soon he began hearing another sound in the wind. "Who's there?" Paul said. "Who's there?" Paul said again. "Where are you, baby?" Suddenly Paul saw a tail sticking right out of a blue snowdrift. When he pulled on the tail, out came the biggest baby ox on earth. Except for its white horns, the creature was a frozen deep blue, the same color as the snow. "Hey, babe!" Paul shouted. "Hush, hush, babe," Paul said as he carried the frozen ox back home. "There now," he said, setting the blue creature gently down in front of his fire. "We'll get you warmed up all right." Paul fell asleep with his arm around the giant baby ox. Except when the morning sun began shining on the blue snow outside the mouth of his cave, Paul felt a soft, wet nose nuzzling his neck. As the rough tongue licked his nose, his cheeks, and his eyelids, Paul's joyous laughter shook the earth. He had found a friend. Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox were inseparable after that. It's a known fact that Babe's full-grown height finally measured to be 42 axe handles, and he weighed more than the combined weight of all the fish that ever got away. In those times, huge sections of America were filled with dark green forests, and those forests were filled with trees, oceans of trees, trees as far as the eye could see. It would be nice if those trees could have stayed tall and thick forever, but the pioneers needed them to build houses, churches, ships, wagons, bridges, and barns. So One day, Paul Bunyan took a good look at all those trees and said, "Babe, stand back, I'm about to invent logging." "Timber!" he yelled as he swung his bright steel axe in a wide circle. There was a terrible crash. When Paul looked around, he saw he felled 10 white pines in a single swing. He loaded them onto the ox's back and said, "Babe, let's haul them down to the Big Onion River and send them down to the sawmill." As they walked from Maine to Minnesota, they put the logs down into the river. "She's too crooked. Our logs will get jammed into her curves." He tied one end of the rope to Babe's harness and the other around the end of the river. Then he shouted, "Pull, pull!" Babe huffed and puffed until he pulled all the kinks out of that winding river. "There, she's as straight as a gum barrel now. Let's send down these logs." After that, Paul and Babe traveled plenty fast to the untamed North Woods. They cut pine, spruce, and red willow in Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They cleared cottonwoods out of Kansas so the farmers could plant wheat. They cleared oaks out of Iowa so the farmers could plant corn. It seemed the summer after the corn was planted in Iowa, there was a heat wave. It got so hot, the corn started to pop. It popped until the whole state was covered with 10 feet of popcorn. Then the wind blew the popcorn over to Kansas, where it felt like a blizzard. Unfortunately, those Kansas cows weren't so smart, so they thought it was a blizzard and immediately froze to death. I could go on with stories about Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox. Today, if you marvel at the Grand Canyon, the Rocky Mountains, and the Great Lakes, one might wonder if Paul Bunyan has something to do with it.